We are live.
Herb Oliger followed you. Herb's dad? What the?
You ready?
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Let me just tweet this.
4 people in here, huh? Riveting stuff so far.
All right. We're good.
All right. In 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Around the 412. We are part of allsteelers.com and proudly presented by Crowworthy, where winners are serving winners coast to coast with sports, gambling, fantasy, and more. Follow at Crowworthy on Twitter and visit us at crowworthy.com. You can also check out the Crowworthy Pittsburgh City page for podcasts just like this one, blogs, and more. I'm Tyler, and with me as always is Smitty, a beardless Smitty, on a sad Tuesday.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm beardless because I'm sad. I'm beardless because the Steelers are out of the playoffs. I made a promise that I wasn't going to shave until the Steelers ran for 100 yards. That didn't end up happening, but they got knocked out of the playoffs before it could happen. Not to say that it would have happened anyway, even had they miraculously come back and won this game against Cleveland. They weren't going to run for 100 yards in this game. They probably would have run for 100 yards in Buffalo. They probably would have lost to Buffalo even if they would have somehow pulled this one out against Cleveland. I'm in a very down mood about the Steelers. We're going to talk about all of it. But first, I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, one of them, which is Manscaped. So listen up, fellas. 2020 sucked. Yes, it did for the Steelers too, especially the end of it, and also the beginning of 2021. However, it's new year, new balls with our sponsor, Manscaped. So Manscaped is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming, offering precision-engineered tools for your family jewels and helping 2 million men all over the world get rid of the hair on their balls. I saw Garrett's in here, so I wanted to make an emphasis on the men all over the world because we know he's in a different part of the world than us. So even Gareth can get in on this action. If you let yourself go in 2020 while in quarantine, Manscaped is here for you to reboot and stay clean and shaved in 2021. Clean and shaved, huh? Sounds familiar. So I have all their products. Tyler talks about it all the time. He has all their products. He typically shows them to you guys as
Yeah,
well.
I got them right here. I got 2 of them at least. The other one's in the bathroom. These are the ones that stay on the nightstand.
He also always talks about the foot duster. That's one of his favorite products. One of my favorite products, which I use on regular basis, would be the body wash, which you can also use for your hair, and the cologne. They both become my daily cologne and my body wash. So I use those literally all the time. Come out of quarantine with clean balls thanks to the Lawnmower 3.0. This waterproof and skin-safe trimmer will reduce nicks to your 2 best friends. The 3rd-generation trimmer even has a light to give you that glow that you need in 2021. It's time to freshen up down there this new year. Crop Preserver is an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer. You already put deodorant on your armpits. Why is that not reflective on your balls as well? Well, now that it is, I don't know why it took so long for this to become a thing. I don't know why that somebody didn't think of it before, but here we are. And then, of course, you have the Crop Reviver ball toner spray, which we talk about all the time as well. Those were the 2 things that Tyler holds up.
Yep.
Manscaped even threw in their shed travel bag to keep all your goodies stored comfortably. Speaking of comfort, the Manscaped anti-chafing boxer briefs are also included in the Perfect Package 3.0, and they're hands down the best underwear you will ever wear. Get 20% off plus free shipping on all these products when you use the code 412 at checkout at manscaped.com. Again, that's code 412 at checkout at manscaped.com.
Yeah, it's pretty sad that we can't use football reads anymore.
Yeah, the
At least
football reads.
we're not going to be using them for a while
I
at
could
least.
probably switch it up and throw in a different player or something like that. It just wouldn't feel the same. It wouldn't have the same vibe. I wouldn't be able to put the same energy into it knowing that our season's over. So let's just move on.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really down. It's a down vibe, and it sucks because I mean, it's the last Steelers show, really. I mean, of course we're gonna still have them, but Steelers show where we actually get to talk about games for a while.
Yeah, here's the thing. I mean, I think that we kind of took it for granted, and I was like reflective of that as I started to like lead up to the game on Sunday night. I was thinking, wow, like this could be the last game of the year. I think we were all kind of taking Cleveland for granted in this game, not the players, but I feel like the fan base was. And I feel like we were just looking past them, to be honest with you. I mean, I can tell you firsthand that I definitely was. I can say this now because it's over. I thought for sure they're winning this game against Cleveland on Sunday, and I didn't feel great about their chances in Buffalo. Personally, that's how I felt. And going into this game, the way that it started out, first 15 seconds of the game, Cleveland's up 7-0 after Pouncey throws the ball, airmails it all the way over Ben's head to the end zone. Him and James Conner both unable to jump on the ball. It falls in the end zone, and one of the Cleveland Browns players falls on it. 15 seconds in, we're down 7-0. That it's only 7 points, but more than that, it's the momentum that carries, and it set the tone for the rest of the game. The worst first quarter of football I've ever seen the Steelers play on both sides of it, because you could say that the offense put the defense in some terrible spots. They could have held them to 3 a couple times in that game and didn't. I mean, it wasn't just one aspect of this game, of this team in this game that was atrocious. It's an all-around bad performance.
Yeah, it's what's funny is you mentioned the bad snap to start the game, and I was texting my friend Craig Maley, who and we were texting throughout the game, but he said something he thought of was Super Bowl 48 with the Broncos and the Seahawks, like right away. The tone of the game immediately, because the same thing happened where the snap went over Peyton Manning's head, it went into the end zone, the Seahawks scored, and then from then on out it was basically the Seahawks game. Now, obviously, the Steelers made a little more of a comeback than the Broncos did in that Super Bowl, but it was just a vibe you felt throughout the game. As soon as that happened, it was just like, okay, well, that sucks. And now Cleveland has all the momentum. Let's pick it up from here. But the Steelers were never able to pick it up. They never able to grasp onto the hold of the game.
I've never seen like turnovers and just mental errors like mount like that for a team. And that's what Juju said. It was like at one point they were just like, can we just please get to halftime, and see if we can like recover at that point, because it's just they couldn't do anything right. And it wasn't even like, and a lot of it was just, I don't want to take credit away from Cleveland. They definitely deserve to win this game. But a lot of it was just like the Steelers doing it to themselves. Like how much it was actually Cleveland creating these turnovers. It's just, I don't know, just a bad football game. And it's a terrible way to go out. But I will say, and I want to dive deeper into all this, but just overviewing the entire game before that we really dive into it, it was cool to see Ben in the second half perform the way that he did and Juju perform the way that he did. Like you can definitely say that the offense never gave up in this game, and to see Ben put that cape on one last time and try to lead the comeback, because who knows, his future's up in the air, and even should he come back next year, like that still very well could have been his last playoff game, especially at Heinz Field.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely spots of this game where you saw them putting it together a little bit, but overall, the team never collectively figured it out. Whether it was the Steelers making a comeback a little bit in that third quarter, going into the fourth quarter, the defense then gave up some points to let Cleveland just take over the game again. I mean, it was never one side. One side without the other wasn't going well. The defense was either giving up the points or the offense was turning the ball over, it seemed like, every single time. And it was just very frustrating to watch. I mean, I'm sure, and then as a fan, yes, as a player, I'm sure that was just frustrating for them, because I mean, I've been in a game like that where I know like literally nothing is going right whatsoever. Like that was arguably like the worst Steeler game I've watched, especially playoff game. I don't think I've seen anything like that where just nothing is going right.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just started looking down at the chat and I want to address, people that are in here. See, we already have like 8 people in here. So everybody that's tuning in, thanks. We appreciate you guys coming in here. But I just saw Tyler say about how similar it was to the 2017 playoff game in Jacksonville. And I tweeted it watching that, how similar it was. It's like, but the difference was we knew that defense wasn't that good. Like, what is the excuse with the defense this year? because they have the talent. I know that, Alex Highsmith got hurt in this game, and that's another domino to fall. And then you have Cassius Marsh out there. He looked terrible. But that's not somebody that's part of the future plans anyway. But like Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt, I think they have like 17 combined playoff games. They have one combined sack in those games. TJ Watt arguably should win the Defensive Player of the Year this year. And that's a regular season award, not taking that away from him. Where was he at? I love TJ. He's my favorite player on this team. But, where was he at on Sunday night? I think he tipped one past the line of scrimmage. He made a tackle for loss. Didn't notice him much. And I understand Baker Mayfield was getting the ball out of his hands quick. They were able to run the ball. But these guys needed to make more of an impact. And Minka really didn't notice him. You would like to see a splash play or two, but he's not somebody that I noticed at least. Mike Hilton looked bad. Edmonds looked bad. Like, I could go down the list. Everybody looked bad in this game. And for a defense, this was the strong point of this team, or at least supposed to be, where we said before the year, hey, Ben Roethlisberger just needs to be an average quarterback for this team to be a contender. He was average this year. I know that he looked really good at the beginning, no matter what people say, looked really bad at the end. It averages out to be an average quarterback in this game. With the way that he played, they still could have won this football game despite that early, onslaught that Cleveland had, if this defense would have found a way to hold them to 3 a couple of times.
Yeah, and you expect that the front seven that the Steelers have, you expect them to get somewhat of, you expect them to get somewhat of a pass rush to be able to help out that pass defense, but they weren't able to find that, because I've complained over the past month and a half that the Steelers have been letting up the run too easily.
Yeah,
especially
since week 8,
play action. It's been terrible. If the quarterback gets in his hands, I mean, Baker burned them on multiple plays like that a couple weeks ago, and so I just don't see how the defense can be held from blame, because I know everybody wants to blame the offense, and rightfully so. There's a lot wrong there, but the defense gave the offense no help in this game to be able to come back, because I mean, you could think that in a game where you score 37 points, you should be able to win the game, but the other team scored 48. So, and that's not on the offense. Now, granted, part of it is because of the turnovers and the field position, but not all of it is on the offense.
Again, they could have held them to 3 a couple times, as opposed to giving up 7. It's not like, other than the one that literally was in the end zone that Cleveland recovered, they didn't hand them 7 points at any point. So, but I like I said, I do want to get to some of these comments. I feel like we're going to be regurgitating a lot of stuff throughout this, just because a lot of this, I mean, I kind of laid out what the blueprint of the show was going to be. A lot of this is just going to be raw emotion talking about. This is the first time we've got to talk about it. As we always say, that we're fans first. So this is literally just us releasing our thoughts on the game, and it's going to be, again, probably a lot of regurgitated stuff. We were going to repeat ourselves. John said, the end of the season really just gives me the realization for the first time in 20 years or so that it's time to rebuild to a certain degree. And I can't, like, it's like at the end. I
can't argue with that.
Yeah. When we, even going back to 2017, when we got knocked out of the playoffs by Jacksonville, it's like, okay, this team's coming back. You still feel really good about this team. We didn't know that it was going to be Antonio's last year in Pittsburgh. We didn't know that Bell was going to hold out and not play a single snap. We didn't know that when we lost that game to Jacksonville. Here we go. All of a sudden, we missed the playoffs for a couple years in a row. Ben goes down in 2019. Even at the end of last year, I would say we knew that entire defense pretty much was coming back. The offense, we knew that there were weapons. It was just missing the quarterback. We're getting the quarterback back in Ben Roethlisberger. The end of this year does just completely feel different, because you watched the ascension of Cleveland. I know people don't want to admit it. Cleveland's a pretty good football team. And I mean, they literally just showed it on Sunday night to us. We know what Baltimore is. Cincinnati is getting better. The AFC North is getting better. How quickly can the Steelers retool? I'll say retool as opposed to rebuild. How quickly can the Steelers retool to compete with these guys? Because they're not just one piece away.
Honestly, I feel like the biggest question is how soon are they going to address the quarterback position? Because we don't know if Ben's going to retire. Now, there's a lot of speculation that Pouncey could retire, and it's said that they were going to retire together or something like that. Yeah. And the way Ben looked after the game, you just got the feeling like, okay, this might have been the last time we see Ben in the Steelers uniform. But for those of you who know Ben, he's got a lot of fight in him, and he might want to come back. So we don't know when he's going to retire, but I feel like a retool would start with the quarterback position, because no matter what you do on the rest of the team, if you have a terrible quarterback, it's not going anywhere. And so whether you address that and he retires and you trade for a quarterback, I know I teased the Deshaun Watson thing, but I mean, that if he retired, that could open up that possibility. But whether you draft one, trade one, stick with Mason Rudolph, I don't know what you're going to do there, but it starts there. And then you have to address that offensive line. I get the defense. They didn't play well, but I feel like there's a lot more issues on that offense than there is on the defense that you have to rebuild. And that starts with the offensive line after the quarterback. Now, obviously in the draft, I want to draft the offensive lineman before we draft a quarterback, but
Hey,
the offensive line is just
another
not good.
Joe Burrow situation happened in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's just the offensive line is not good, flat out. For the most of the year, the only one that has a lot of promise ahead of him is Kevin Dotson. The rest of them, I don't really have much good to say about them for this season.
Yeah, here's the thing, and again, I mean, I can't. There's a lot of people with a lot of comments coming in on the YouTube right now. I want to address all of it, but as you're saying these things and thoughts pop in my head, if David DeCastro is just, if this is the player he is now, and it's not just an injury that was hampering him throughout 2020, we literally have one above average offensive lineman coming back, and it's Kevin Dotson. I think Chooks is below average. I'm not sure what Zach Banner's going to come back and be. Again, David Castro, I think he can be a starter, but I think he's at this point, if this is the player he is, I don't think he's even an average offensive lineman. I did not like what I saw from him this year. So again, I hope that it's just attributed to injury and he comes back fully healthy next year and gets back to be. He's only 31 years old. This guy should have years left in him, which is crazy to think. Like Pouncey's also just 31, but
yeah,
he's been in the league since he was 21. So a little bit different there. But again, this is an offensive line that needs a lot of help. And that's why, and I feel like I'm kind of just jumping around now, but it's just because I was doing some mock drafts today and people were getting involved in it. And I put out a tweet about like corner potentially being a need and people were jumping on me and everybody is saying
it's legitimately a positional need. For
yeah,
sure.
And literally everybody's jumping on me about they need to address offensive line, which I can agree with, and everybody's saying running back. And I get it. There's not a legit number one workhorse running back on this roster right now, but there's not a legit workhorse running back on a lot of rosters throughout the league. And you see teams win Super Bowls without having one. So I don't think I think a running back, especially that early, I'm not saying don't draft a running back at all. A running back in the first round is such a luxury pick that the rest of your roster better be filled out. It better be complete. And with what we're talking about,
look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs didn't have a positional need as much.
Yeah, the Chiefs could definitely have afforded to have gone offensive line there or somebody in the secondary, but they didn't. They chose a running back. Whatever, so be it. They're still going to end up back in the Super Bowl this year. But for the Steelers, with what we're talking about, I brought up corner because I know that we're 4 deep. We've been 4 deep each of the last 2 years. All 4 of those guys within the next 2 years, this year and after next year, are all free agents. Not to say that they're all going to be gone, but that's just the way that it is. You need a solution, a long-term plan at corner. I know this team hasn't drafted well. That's a legit concern for people as far as their evaluation of cornerbacks and can they draft wisely and develop that position. I get it, but they're going to have to because long-term, there's not much of a plan there. Because Justin Lane got jumped by James Pierre on the roster. Is that, more telling of which guy? Does that mean James Pierre's something or Justin Lane's nothing? I don't know. But again, cornerback is definitely a position where I think a lot of people aren't talking about it, but it's a need. And it's not the top need. I'm still doing offensive line first, assuming there's a guy there that I deem worthy of the 24th overall selection. But I don't see a way that people can argue with the corner being, somewhere in the top 3 needs.
I think it is in the top 3. I'd put it at number 2. After, if you're excluding quarterback, which with this draft, where the Steelers are drafting, I feel like quarterback's out of the question.
Okay, real quick too, because I want to say, with everything that we have that we need, the only argument you can make to take a quarterback is if you're moving up. I feel like this team can't really afford to trade draft capital with all the needs that they have as well.
Yeah, they can't. I think it's impossible to like for example, I've had friends, obviously everybody knows I'm a BYU fan. I have friends say, like, what if we get Zach Wilson? I'm like, you're not going to draft high enough to get Zach Wilson. And they're like, let's trade up. And they're like, that's not going to happen. But to address the running game, the problem I have with people that say, let's draft Najee Harris and then the running game will be fine, is that Najee Harris behind this offensive line is not going to be the Najee Harris you see at Alabama. Because you have to have holes and have run blocking to be able to be a good running back. It's not just the running back making plays out of nowhere. It takes the offensive line as well. And with the offensive line that they had this year, even if they had, I don't even know if they had Emmitt Smith, it is not going to be the same running game that you're going to have. They're what you think you're going to have. You're going to have a pretty similar running game because there's nowhere the running back can go. Most of the running plays were bottled up at the line of scrimmage because they couldn't get a push off of the offensive line. So that's why offensive line is such a pivotal position, and you need to draft probably a tackle with that first pick this year, because otherwise you're just going to if you don't address it, you're just going to have a great running back running behind a poor offensive line again, if you do what a lot of fans want to do with drafting Najee Harris or a guy like that in the first round.
Yeah, the guy that we've seen a lot of talk is Alex Leatherwood. And I think that would be a phenomenal pick at 24. I think that the value is definitely there. Obviously, the positional need is there. You mentioned the guy has to be a tackle, and I would agree. I think I would find it even more comforting if they were able to get a guy that has that tackle guard versatility. For example, Leatherwood is a guy that made that switch. Elijah Vera Tucker, USC, is another guy that can play guard or play tackle. Rashawn Slater, Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech. I mean, there's a lot of guys that you would want them to probably primarily play tackle in college, because I think that would say if things don't go well for them immediately at tackle in the NFL, then you can at least put them at guard. But look at the Steelers roster next year. We're talking about it. If we get a guy that can't play at least the right tackle position, hopefully they can come in and play left tackle and keep Chooks or Banner or whatever at right tackle. But if this guy can't play left tackle, you're asking Chooks or Banner to play left tackle. Potentially this guy at right tackle. We're pretty high on Dotson. Here's the thing that I want to talk about, though. We brought up Pouncey already. One, gut feeling right now, is he back next year?
No.
Okay, well, then that's got to be on the draft docket as well, because I do not trust J.C. Hassenauer to be the center for this team. I think that I would be putting Creed Humphrey somewhere along my draft targets. And I don't know. Josh Myers at Ohio State's a pretty good one too. I don't know too many centers that are going to be taken in the first two rounds. I feel like if you can go with a Leatherwood type in the first round and still get Creed Humphrey in the second, I feel like all of a sudden you have 3 or 4 really good pieces on your offensive line, and it's almost to the point where that is completely fixed.
Yeah, and let me preface, the only reason I say no is because I feel like, and I might be jumping the gun, we might talk about this a little later, I feel like Ben might retire now. And it's literally just watching him post game. Watching his reaction, him Pouncey together, I feel like if one goes out, both are going out.
My feeling on that is his reaction was due to feeling like Pouncey was done. So I don't know that was indicative of how Ben himself felt in that moment. I feel like it was a reaction to maybe something Pouncey said to him. And that's what Dale Lawley said in that article that he wrote for DK. And Ramon Foster said that he talked to him, and he's up in the air. It's like a 50-50 right now whether he's going to return. What I'll say on that, and what I know people are going to say in response is going to be about Ben, is if you're not 2 feet in, if you're not 100% committed, if you're 50-50, if you're on the fence, I don't think that he comes back if that's where he's at mentally.
Mm-hmm.
If he's on the fence about coming back, I think that he's mentally already retired, if that's his thought.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I hate talking about Ben like this because he's been our quarterback. You've said it multiple times. He's been the quarterback of your entire Steelers fandom. Me too, pretty much. But at some point, you just kind of got to look yourself in the mirror and be like, okay, it might be time. And the way that he performed in the latter half of this year, and it's not all on him. Like we said, it's a collective effort offensively. But if that is the quarterback play that you're going to have going into next year, then we got to be realistic about it. Is that going to be really much worse than Mason Rudolph could do, especially compared to what we've seen in that Cleveland game? It's a small sample size, but I mean, if we can get similar production or even better from someone else, should he come back?
This is where I'm so torn. We're going to talk more about it because we have more than just the players to talk about as far as the organizational turnover that we could see. But his offensive coordinator's contract's up. So say they don't renew his contract. They don't bring back, because how can they? I mean, how can you justify giving this guy a new deal? I understand not firing him, but not only would they not have to not fire him, they literally have to give him a new contract to bring him back. So say they don't do that. Is it worth it for Ben to learn a new offensive system and new offensive scheme for 1 year? And if Pouncey does hang him up, is it worth it to play with a new center for 1 year? I mean, I don't know. So here's what I'll say about Ben. He absolutely deserves to go out however he wants to go out. I don't care what his cap hit is next year. I don't care how much we could save by him retiring. He's done so much for this organization that he deserves to go out however he wants to go out. If he wants to come back next year, that's fine. I'll embrace it. It will be, especially because hopefully fans are back and they didn't get to be there this year, to embrace him and let him go out like that. So if he wants to come back for 1 more year, great. But here's what I would tell him is you don't get to pick your OC. Pouncey might not be back. We don't know what's going to happen with the offensive line. If you can agree to come back under our terms with all these things surrounding, all these pieces, this is what's going to be around you if you decide to come back. Do you want to come back now? That's how I would lay it out for him. And if the answer is
like an ultimatum,
then great. Yeah. He can come back, but it has to be under the organization's terms.
Yeah, I agree with that because I feel like Ben, for the tenure that he's had with the Steelers, I mean, that's really what got Randy Fichtner the job, is that, okay, this guy's his quarterback coach. I want him as my OC. So that's how we got into this position in the first place. So I agree with you. I think it's time for if he wants to come back, the organization has to basically put the hammer down and say, okay, we're not going to let you just pick who you want because you only have a year or two left at best, and we have to start looking forward past you. So we can't just plan all of our signees and hirees around you. Even though you have been our franchise quarterback, that's just not how it's going to work. If we only have a year of you left, what's the point of hiring someone that you want? So I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, and there's talk about Matt Canada, obviously, with the way that the Steelers operate. An internal promotion would make a ton of sense. Here's the thing: for 1 year of Ben, Ben's going to be 39 next year. I don't think that Ben can run that offensive scheme, to be honest with you. If it was all Canada, if it was just him, not just him having a small piece of it, but just Canada's influence, I don't think Ben has the mobility to run Matt Canada's offense. So I think if Matt Canada is your offensive coordinator, I don't think Ben can be your quarterback.
Now, what if Deshaun Watson's your quarterback?
If Deshaun Watson's your quarterback, I don't know. It matters who your offensive coordinator is. That dude's a magician.
No, I agree.
A lot of what he does reminds me of watching Ben when he used to just it doesn't matter what play you call because that wasn't going to end up being the play that took place. His line has always been terrible in Houston, and this guy was just thrived on what he did when the play broke down. Just what he did out of structure is just, it's unbelievable watching him play. That's a pipe dream. I don't see it happening.
I don't either. I was just joking about that when I tweeted it the other day. Realistically though, the ideal would be Ben retires, we trade for Deshaun Watson, but that's so unrealistic. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. And again, that to the point that we keep trying to hammer home, it's all about the quarterback. Like, people can say, oh, I wouldn't give up 2 or 3 first rounders for Deshaun Watson. Why not? Because he's worth that easily. You're talking about a franchise quarterback who's 25 years old right now.
Did you see Mark Madden's tweet?
Talking
about the trade? Yeah. Would you trade TJ Watt for Deshaun Watson?
That's so tough. People are going to hate me for this. Yeah. Because it's a quarterback and it's an edge rusher. Edge rusher is the second most important position to me, or left tackle. I think you can make the argument for either one, but the number one is quarterback easily. If you don't have a quarterback, nothing else matters.
Yeah. I've always been told that first it's a quarterback, then protect the quarterback, then who rushes the quarterback is like the 3 most important positions in football. So I got to agree with you. I would trade TJ for Deshaun Watson. And I hate
everybody's about to leave this.
dude, I would. I mean, it's a potential franchise quarterback. And I get TJ Watt. He's going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year. He's amazing. I have his jersey. You have his jersey. I mean, we love this guy. He's a great player. But you just can't pass up an opportunity to get a franchise quarterback. Now we're talking this is hypothetical. It's probably never going to happen, but in that hypothetical, I would make that trade.
That's the thing is it's not like you're talking about one of the best edge rushers for a quarterback. You're talking about an elite edge rusher for an elite quarterback. And at that point, it just comes down to what position matters more, and that's quarterback 7 days out of 7.
Yeah, it's not like we're trading for like Drew Lock. Let's be real.
No. Stubbs said this show stinks. I don't disagree with you, but we're here anyway. Okay, so let's talk about this coaching staff for a second, because I think a lot of the blame for Sunday's game can lie there, and it's crazy to say. How hot is Mike Tomlin's seat?
Realistically, or where I think it should be?
Both.
Realistically, it's probably room temperature. It's not really that hot because we know how the Steelers operate. Where I think it should be is kind of to the point where it's you can stand to put your hand on the stove, but it's getting pretty warm and you want to take it off. That's where I think it should be. I mean, I don't think that he is short of blame in this game or the second half of the season. I mean, really, from that Thanksgiving game that got postponed a week from then on, I don't think he's done well coaching wise. In certain games, in certain game situations, he's shown that he's made poor decisions. And it's not just his OC that we love to blame or his DC that is taking all the blame for it. He should get the front of the blame. I mean, he's the head coach. Yeah. I get we always want to hate on Randy Fichtner and all that, but I've been a huge Mike Tomlin defender. But for the second half of this season, I can't help but blame him for a lot of it. And I really feel like they need to, if they're not going to fire him, at least evaluate his work performance and see what we're working with and what needs to improve and where outside sources can improve elsewhere. Like if we're looking at other coaches outside, because the biggest question is whenever you bring up Mike Tomlin is, okay, who's going to replace him? If you think there's a guy that you're at least willing to give a chance on replacing him with, I think you need to give that a serious look because, and I know that might sound crazy to you, but I really think that he's not done a good job the second half of this season. And I mean, it's been a lot of culture, I think, that has been shown in the Steelers as well. Like they're just so lackadaisical with the mistakes they make and their decision-making in game. And it's just frustrating.
So I'm man, like as you were talking, the thoughts were just compiling, and I was like, man, I got to remember all this stuff for when he's done talking. But like, you brought up the DC, and from what we know, that was Mike Tomlin's play calling on Sunday, which is bad in two ways. It's bad on Tomlin because of how bad the performance was. It's bad on Keith Butler because why is he even here if Mike Tomlin's calling the defensive plays? Like, what exactly is Keith Butler doing during this then? Is he essentially just back to being the linebackers coach if Mike Tomlin's calling these plays? So, yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that came out. And if that's true, that's a very bad look. And I'm not firing Mike Tomlin right now. I want to preface that. I'm a huge Mike Tomlin supporter. Everybody that listens to this show knows this. But I'm also not giving him an extension. And his contract is up after next season. So I would literally have him going into this year knowing that this could be the last year that he coaches. And similarly to Ben, I'm putting him in a position where you don't get these, like you got to get rid of your coordinators. That's on you, because that's the thing is people want to take blame off Tomlin and give it to the coordinators. Whose coordinators are they? He picked these guys, right? I mean, they're on his staff. He's in charge of these guys as much as he's in charge of these players. We talk about it all the time. He's the best at motivating people. He controls a locker room as well as anybody else. And that's, a huge part of coaching. That's great. I don't think that he's a great X's and O's coach. And I don't think that he's great, on game days, in game. And because of that, I think that you need to have very strong coordinators offensively and defensively. So if Mike Tomlin is going to remain the head coach of this team, and I think he should next year, I think that you need an offensive coordinator that can actually call offensive plays and not rely on Tomlin or the quarterback to do so, and a defensive coordinator that can do the same on the opposite side of the ball. I think if Mike Tomlin's your coach, and again, I think he should be, those two coordinator positions need to be emphasized a lot more than they have been in recent history in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I just want to clear up by like me ranting about him. I'm not saying to fire him right now. I'm just saying he
Oh
is
no, I know.
basically what you said is like, okay,
No, no
you have
firing, but also no extension.
yeah, you have next season. Show me what you can do. Basically, like prove to us that you are the coach that we think you are.
And with all the moving pieces we're talking about, if he's able to get back to the playoffs again next year, I mean, that will be a job well done. We assume you look at the schedule next year, but let's talk about it again. The roster turnover that we could see. Bud Dupree not expected to be back. We have two corners. Of those four that I mentioned, how they've been 4 deep the last 2 years. What's
I
this?
wrote down a bunch of names, and I wanted to play a game with you, and basically
Oh, okay.
go through all these names. Are they going to be back? Just quicker, yes or no. Don't think about it. Okay.
All right, yeah.
All right. We're going to start with defense. There's less defense than there is offense. Bud,
Nope, he's gone.
Hilton,
He's back.
Sutton,
He's back.
Spillane,
Ooh, he's back. I think he'll be cheap.
Avery Williamson.
Gone.
Okay. Those are the only ones on defense that I thought were worth pointing out.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Because I
Go
think
ahead.
because of Hilton and Sutton being back, I think that we're going to see a tough cut. I think Joe Hayden's gone.
Okay.
It saves
Is that
$7 million.
just, I would say, is that just because of the money?
It saves $7 million against the cap, and I think that. Listen, I know that they want to run it back one more time, and that's kind of what you're doing. That Ben's coming back, at 41 million and everything like that. They're kind of just taking one last go at it. But on defense, I think it makes more sense to take a look towards the future. That's kind of what they're doing on the outside with the. And I know that they couldn't afford Bud Dupree back anyway, but we're making them a transition there to Alex Highsmith. At corner, I think they would be much more better off rolling with bringing back Sutton and Hilton and saving that $7 million and cutting Joe Hayden to go towards re-signing both of those guys. I think Sutton could play that opposite side, and I don't think immediately he'll be the same as what Joe Hayden offers you on the outside. And I also hate the idea of taking Cam Sutton out of the exact role that he's in right now. But I think he's capable of doing it on the opposite side of Steve Nelson. And then you keep Mike Hilton in the same role. I don't think that he can go anywhere and replicate what he does in Pittsburgh. I think he's just a perfect scheme fit for us. And granted, we're talking about Keith Butler potentially moving on, whether that be Mark Caboli has him retiring. He said that that's going to be a surprise to people as he thinks that Keith Butler retires after this year. We'll see if that comes true. But either way, if somebody comes in and completely changes the scheme, the one thing that they better keep the same is Mike Hilton's role. So that should stay the same. But yeah, my surprise cut, I think Joe Hayden is not on the Steelers roster next year.
That would be a tough cut too, because ever since he's come here, he's loved Pittsburgh, especially after being cut by Cleveland. We picked him up literally 2 hours later after he was cut, and he's loved Pittsburgh. He's been such a big part of this defense, part of the turnaround for this defense, because when we got him, our defense, let's be honest, it just sucked. It was just Swiss cheese.
You had Cam into it, and that was TJ's rookie year, and then you had Shazier at that time. So
it was part of the turnaround. So just seeing like a guy like that go, it's going to be hard if that actually happens. All right, so let's move on to offense real quick, and let's go. J.C. Hassenauer.
He'll be back just for depth, yeah.
Ray McLeod.
Nope, gone.
Vance McDonald.
They will decline that option, but I could see them re-signing him cheap.
Okay. Filer.
Gone.
Dobbs.
Gone.
Zach Banner.
He'll be back.
Al Villanueva.
Gone.
James Conner.
Gone.
Juju Smith-Schuster.
God.
I saved that one for last on purpose.
Yeah, I know this is supposed to be quick, and for that reason, I'll say he's back. I don't know how they're going to do it. Listen, I don't know. As long as, by the way, this is a very big deal that Omar Khan got a second interview now. He already had interviewed for the Texans job, didn't get it. He interviewed in Carolina. This would be the offseason that his job is literally the most important as it's ever been. So they need to hopefully have him still in the organization to help deal with these cap things. But if you can make it so that a lot of these contracts are backloaded, because these guys, the Steelers, as bad of a situation as they're in right now, 2020, and granted they haven't paid TJ or Minka yet, but 2022, 2023 is looking pretty friendly. So if they can, backload those deals, it might not be too bad. And I think that they could do something like that with Juju.
Now, the big question for me is how much do you think Juju would actually cost? Because I don't think you compare him to these like big wide receiver contracts that we see, and especially because he's more so just a slot receiver now. But we know how much value he has to this team and the position that he plays for this team, and he's really the most reliable receiver that Ben has. He trusts him the most. So I don't know. It's hard for me to judge what money he's going to warrant with a contract, because I would assume it's going to be like a 4 or 5 year deal, but I just don't know what the per year term would be.
I'm thinking we give him 3.
Really?
And the reason is I think that's going to be his choice. Think about it. Like, not many guys hit free agency for the first time when they're 24 years old. He's got a unique opportunity here to cash in more than once. By re-signing with Pittsburgh on this deal that we're talking about, I think that limits him to a degree, but we already know what he's making on the other side of it, endorsements and stuff. And we know that he could leave a lot of money on the table by re-signing in Pittsburgh. But, and I'm going to bring up a point here in a second that I'm not sure a lot of people think about, but I think that this dude genuinely, for as much crap as he gets from the media and some of the fan base, I think he loves Pittsburgh. And I think that he has a unique way of blocking all that out, just embracing the organization, and the organization embraces him. And I think it's something he's not ready to give up yet. And I think that he will sign a 3-year deal. Now, the money part of it, I don't think that he will get, 18 plus million. I think you'll see more so between like 13 to 15, somewhere in that range per year.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is, you look at what he's done at 24 years old, I think that absolutely is warranted.
I agree with you. And I also agree that this dude loves Pittsburgh. I think with the post that you saw the other day that he posted, I mean, this dude wants to be back. I really genuinely think that. I don't think he would outwardly say like, I want to be a Steeler if he didn't truly mean it.
Yeah.
So I really think he's basically putting it in the organization's hands. Okay, bring me back. Now, obviously, Juju has to accept the deal, but and do you think he would take quote unquote a hometown discount for the Steelers?
Yeah, I think that's what I think that's kind of what we're talking about. Is he's going to leave money on the table if he returns to Pittsburgh, it's going to be because he left some money on the table.